Hello, everybody.
Hi.
This is our second podcast on empowered relationships. So we're a bit nervous and excited to be introducing another topic today around co-parenting and sharing in a relationship, equality, equity, and so on. So over to you, Maria.
So I've recently gone away for a week. I went to Ireland to work. And it was quite interesting to me, like a lot of people would say, oh, and who's going to mind the children? And I said, well, John, my husband, the father, will mind the children. And people would say, oh, will he manage? And this was kind of a bit shocking to me because the way we parent our kids and the way we run our family is like we both do kind of the same. We look after the children and look after the house, and we both work, and so we have a very much a 50-50 kind of a co-parenting experience. So as you know, I started, especially with women, talking to more women, they were saying, oh, well, my husband or the father of the kids doesn't do anything with the children or around the house. And this has kind of been a bit shocking to me because I think I take it for granted that most people today, the modern world, will be co-parenting, co-creating a family life. So I'm really interested to hear what is your experience, co-parenting or solo parenting. So send us a message and let us know. I'm really interested to see, the modern families, what are they doing and how are they doing it? And even you, when you went to the birthday party, yeah.
Yeah, I went to the birthday, brought the twins to a birthday party and obviously there were lots of Spanish mums there. And when I sort of said that I'm a hands-on father, they all kind of laughed because they said none of their husbands are hands-on.
Yeah.
That they do all the parenting, and it's quite traditional still in that sense.
Yeah.
And I suppose, if we roll it back when we first met, I guess we both agreed that we both came from that traditional background where I know in our own families that the mother was the parent and the father was the provider in some form or other, but not necessarily the parent. And I think we wanted to both be, well, I certainly did, wanted to be a parent as much as a provider, and we both did.
And I wanted to be a provider as much as a mother.
Well, this is
because
it.
for me to work was really important.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stop working.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of deep conversations, especially when we were pregnant with Matthew. But
Yeah.
I was pregnant with Matthew. We had a lot of conversations around this because for me it was very important that, I was going to be a mother, but I also wanted to keep working, and that my work was as important as, John's work.
Yeah.
And that my job as a mother was as important as John being a father.
Yeah, and I remember when we first met, I had been on my own for a while, so the first adjustment I suppose we had to make was, anytime I make a decision, I now have to be inclusive and think, right, I have to, include Maria in my decision making and not just think of myself. And I suppose that was the starting point for this idea of equality or inclusivity. And, and very much when Maria, when we were pregnant with our first child, I love the fact that Maria said to me, John, she said, as a father, while I'm pregnant with our first child and he's growing physically inside me, it's really important that he on some level or other, that child is connected to you emotionally or spiritually, that, it's still important that you're part of this as a father. And I really felt very much included then right from a very early stage in that process. So that was great.
Yeah, and what that did to me, I felt emotionally really safe because you created that wonderful emotional space for me and Matthew to feel safe and to be held emotionally. So that was really important in the pregnancy.
Yeah, and of course when Matthew was born, our first child, the idea of equity you know, I mean, he really needed Maria. She was there 24/7, unbelievable, you know, for him. And so all of a sudden, I'm running around doing all these other jobs like cooking and so on. I mean, up to that point, I was like an average cook.
Your specialty is spaghetti bolognese.
I had one or two main dishes, but all of a sudden I'm in the kitchen and I'm like, okay, I've got to cook for everybody. I've got to shop. I've got to, you know, I suppose I was providing a real kind of supporting role. And also I think it was really important as well, the awareness as a man. You know, when the first child came along, it's all of a sudden, oh, okay, I'm kind of being hooshed out of the bedroom, and now my child is in there with my wife, and you know, I know traditionally it's been easy for a lot of men to feel a certain amount of resentment around that, and that's when, you know, obviously, you know, some men that I've talked to, you know, have affairs or feel like their wife isn't available to them. And so it's really important to navigate that space, isn't it? And have that conversation and, you know.
Yeah, because for me, I felt very protective of Matthew, was the first one. And I felt like, you know, at some level, it was my job to protect him, and that nobody will do it as good as I did. And even I said, okay, something needs to change here. I need to include John in this. And even when I gave him to you, like to change a nappy, I will find myself looking like, he's not doing it right. He's not changing the nappy right. And I really, for me, it was a real learning to back off and say, okay, he's the father. They have to have their own relationship that is not being supervised by me. So, you know, this was, again, an adapting thing. It's like, okay, he doesn't change the nappy like I do, and that it's okay, among other things. But that is okay. It's just to allow that space to, because I think for moms, it can be hard to, because, you know, it's such an instinct to protect and to say, okay, you know, here, you have Matthew for a bit, and I'll go and have a nap. It was really important that they have their own relationship, their own bond, and the way they do it belongs to them. Yeah. I'm
now an expert in nappy changing, by the way, expert.
Yeah.
But again, that was great because, I mean, for Maria to give me the space to come in and kind of be a parent and to let go of, I suppose, as she said, it has to be done this way, and to kind of go, okay, you need to do it your way and bond with the child. So that was really wonderful for her to be able to invite me in that way without kind of over controlling or monitoring all the time, you know. And it was ironically, of course, you know, once we got through that early phase, the twins came along. and funnily, you know, I mean, one of the things that really was amazing was because all of a sudden now Matthew was hooshed out of the bedroom after a year and a half, and he was really grieving that at that time. And of course I was there then to take him and to give him the, obviously, you know, not the same as mom, but to give him the attention and the time that he was craving, because obviously Maria was totally absorbed by the twins. So it worked really well then as a kind of progression for us, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, at least I was there for him, you know, kind of a year and a half later when he really needed me at that time.
Yeah, because he was still a baby, And like one of the best gifts that you've ever given me is the whole concept of self-care, because obviously with you know, the 3 kids, and there'll be times where I was totally burnt out and I was in a very stressful place, and John sent me away a few times for a weekend just to recharge. And even though it was hard to leave everybody behind, but I had to do it just to sleep, just to have some rest, just to have some space. And not even that, is like in the everyday, like you always supported me in that sense of like, you know, you have to look after yourself as well. So, you know, I'm really grateful that you taught me that, because that wasn't how I would think. I would like go. So, and sometimes I think, you know, like other mothers, that they don't have the support and they have kids, and, you know, you see some mothers walking around so tired looking, and it's like, how do they recharge? Like, what is their self-care? Do they even have the opportunity to? So I feel so privileged in that sense to have you to provide that for me. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I always remember the difference in our approaches when we come down in the morning. You know, if Maria was there, she'd come down and, you know, she'd be looking after the kids and she'd feed them all and look after them all, you know, and make sure all their needs were met. And she was totally exhausted herself. And I'd come down and I'd say, so, have you had any breakfast yourself, Maria? She goes, no, I haven't eaten all day almost, you know. And my approach was I'd come down and I'd have my breakfast as I was feeding the kids, you know, at the same time. And I noticed that this difference was between us. But the other thing that I learned was while I'm great at running around and organizing and planning and, you know, making sure everything is done around the house, I realized one of the things I learned from you was to actually to spend time with the children. And to really just be with them. I think, you know, Gabor Mate has just written a book on that. And on really, you know, the importance of just hanging out with your kids without rushing around and doing jobs, because there's always more jobs to do. And I suppose it's a balancing act we found as time has gone on, isn't it? Like, you know, finding a balance between getting things done around the house, getting the kids out the door and so on, getting their lunches made, shopping, cleaning and that, and just hanging out with them and actually having that presence and connection with them is really important, isn't it? Yeah. And with each other.
Great. Great.
So thanks everybody.
Yeah, and we'll really love to hear from you to see what is your experience around parenting, or what do you witness in this 2019? Like, what's going on? Are parents co-parenting? Is still the mother figure parenting more, or what's your experience? We'll really love to hear. Have a great week.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.